Not too long ago, we got an announcement that we're going to get a new Metallica album called 72 Seasons. And accompanying that announcement, we got a new single called Lux Æterna. And when I heard that, I thought, wow, this sounds a lot like new wave of British heavy metal mixed with Kill 'Em All with a nice sheen of polish and rock and roll on top of it. And I wondered, is that what the rest of the album's going to sound like? Or is this a one-off sort of song? Well, now we got a new single, and my fears have been confirmed. This, to me, seems like the direction that the new album's gonna be, and I'm worried I'm not gonna like it. Welcome, metalheads. I'm the host of Heavy Metal Philosophy and writer for Metal Digest, John Barbas. Make sure you stick around to the end of the episode for this week's riff of the week. I'm worried about this Metallica album, y'all. I want it to be good so bad because I love Metallica so much. Metallica's the band that started all of this metal for me to begin with. I was just a rock and roll guy, and when I heard One from Injustice for All, I was forever changed. That's what did it. And from that point on, I've been a huge Metallica mark ever since. They were, by far and away, my favorite metal band all throughout the 90s. And then as I started to get into more extreme metal, I got different favorites, but Metallica will always hold a very special place in my heart. And I always go back and listen to those old songs, and it just fills me with love and nostalgia. But most importantly, those old albums still make me want to headbang. When I hear Battery, when I hear Dyer's Eve, when I hear Harvester of Sorrow or The God That Failed, those songs are still heavy. They still hold up today. And a lot of the old fans, they fell off the Metallica train during the Black Album and then even more so during the Load and Reload era. But I was such a mark for Metallica back then that I was that guy taking up for Metallica even when they cut their hair and put out Load. I was the guy saying, and I still say to this day, that if any other band had put out the album Load, we'd be regaling it as a masterpiece. But because it had the name Metallica at the top, people got mad about it. I think that album is a masterpiece, and it has some of my favorite songs of all time. The Outlaw Torn is incredible. I think Load and Reload is Kirk Hammett's best lead work, and it's not even close. He crafted his solos on that. He came up with all these unique directions. He laid off of the Kirk Hammettisms a little bit and explored new territory. And then Saint Anger hit. And I wanted to like Saint Anger so bad. I maintain that there are some crushing riffs on that album, and it's just absolutely ruined by, of course, the snare sound. Everybody talks about the snare sound.
This is how you take a normal, good sounding snare drum and turn it into the complete abortion of Saint Anger. Okay, you ready?
But also, there's no lead work to be heard anywhere on there. You can hear the disjointed chaos that was going on in the studio. It didn't sound as clean and tight as the previous 3 albums with Bob Rock sounded. There was potential there to be something super heavy and emotional and personal, and they just didn't pull it off. They weren't bad songs, they just didn't execute it well in the studio. So after Load and Reload and now Saint Anger, people are starting to question the Kings, saying they ain't got it anymore, saying they're rich and they changed and they've gone soft. And I'm a diehard Metallica fan. Say it ain't so. I don't want it to be true. Enter Death Magnetic. This was supposed to be their return to form, and in a lot of ways it was. They went back to being an old school metal band. They weren't afraid of guitar harmonies anymore, and it was okay. I didn't love it. Every album can't be Injustice for All. Every album can't be Master of Puppets. But there's a couple of songs on there that I'm okay with. But to me, it just seemed like a step in the right direction that hadn't fully got there yet. So when Hardwired to Self-Destruct was announced, and I believe Moth to the Flame was the first single off of that, I thought, this is it. This is the way Metallica is supposed to sound. That last album was a step in the right direction, and now they figured it out. They're back. Well, Hardwired to Self-Destruct did a lot of things that were really great. And I'm sorry, it was hampered by Kirk Hammett's performance on there. You can tell that he just showed up at the studio one day and did all of his solos in one take and was like, yep, I'm done. Thanks. See y'all later. James had all these killer riffs and tight songs, and they deserved better than that. There's a couple of songs on there. I mentioned Moth to Flame, Atlas Rise. There's a couple of good songs on there that I think would have been great with proper lead work, and they're just okay. Well, then after I heard the album, I found out that Kirk lost his phone with all of his ideas, so he didn't really get to contribute to any of the songs on that album, and he was bummed out about it. I think he should have been a professional and still wrote cool solos for the stuff that James wrote, but I understand. And now, supposedly, he didn't lose his phone on this new album, so everybody's joining in, right? It's going to be great. So they announced a new album, and I hear Lux Æterna, and I think it's so cool, but I'm like, do I want a full album of this? Because it's rock and roll. It's high energy. It's very fun, but it doesn't make me want to headbang. It's not heavy. I thought maybe this is a one-off. You know, there's that song on Load. It's like a country song, like Mama Said or something like that. You know, back in the day, people were upset about Fade to Black, and that's kind of a one-off song. You know, on the Black album, you've got Nothing Else Matters. That's kind of a one-off song. So I was hoping that Lux Æterna was one of those great one-off songs where they're like, let's just have fun and write like a drive a fast car rock and roll song. So now we have the new single called Screaming Suicide, and it sounds like Lux Æterna. It's that new wave of British heavy metal style riffing. It's kind of that kill 'em all speed, but it's missing the crunch. It's missing the oomph and the punch. It's just not heavy. It's a fun rock and roll song again. I love rock and roll. If some other band had put these songs out, I think, yeah, this is great. But it's Metallica. I want it to be heavy. I want it to be metal. And it's got this great tight songwriting with these cool interweaving dynamics, but it's just a little bit too polished, I feel. I think that's what a lot of people didn't like about the Black album and Load and Reload, was they weren't that dirty thrash metal band anymore, but it wasn't polished like this, especially Load and Reload. People think they sold out then, but it had this dirty, bluesy sort of feel and sound to it. And Saint Anger had a very dirty sounding production. And then, of course, the last two albums, Hardwired and Death Magnetic, they were clean, you know, and of course they had a big budget, recorded it professionally in a studio, but it didn't sound polished to a sheen the way these two singles do. So this leaves me with a dilemma, because I want it to be good so badly. When Lux Æterna came out, I was like, yeah, it's great, because I wanted it to be great. But is it really great? You know, the drummer from Godsmack said that if another band had released that song, it probably wouldn't have got as many plays as it did. And I don't know. What do you think? I mean, Metallica's at that point now where anything they do is going to garner a lot of attention. And then a part of me thinks maybe this is an artistic choice. Maybe they're doing this on purpose, the way that they did with Load and Reload. It feels like this is a conscious decision. Like James and Lars got together and were like, let's kick it old school. We love new wave of British heavy metal. Let's just do that. Let's just relive our childhood. And then James said that the title 72 Seasons is about the first 18 years of your life. So maybe it's a concept album about growing up. So they want to conjure up these images of their childhood and the kind of metal that they listened to back then. And those of you that have listened to this podcast for a long time know that I am unafraid to say the blasphemic thing that I don't really like Iron Maiden. I'm not really a Judas Priest guy. All that trad heavy metal, I respect it. I mean, they're the godfathers of metal. They paved the way. So of course I respect it, but it's just not my thing. I don't like for my metal to be pretty and powerful and epic. I want it to be heavy. I want it to be brutal. And that's why I loved And Justice for All so much. I love all of those high-flying guitar harmonies. Of course, I love beautiful guitar work, but give me some crunch in there too. I want to bang my head. And you know, a long time ago, I used to think, well, metal's a young man's game and old people can't really do it. So when Metallica gets old, they're going to write old people music and it just can't be helped. And I should just appreciate the master musicianship, which is clearly on display on this new single. I mean, like I was talking about with the great dynamics, I mean, everything is masterful. I respect it musically, but it just doesn't have that youthful energy. But Cannibal Corpse proved that notion wrong to me. Soulfly proved that notion wrong to me. Here you have two veteran bands still putting out crushing metal. Corpse Grinder is a family man. He's domestic and he's got kids and he's a nice guy and he still makes brutal, deliberately heavy metal that doesn't sound fake. So now I know it can be done. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not writing off the album. I'm not saying, okay, I've heard 2 songs. I know it's going to be bad. I don't know that. Maybe this is deliberate. Maybe they're releasing the songs that sound like that, and maybe there'll be 3 or 4 gems on it. And that's kind of the way I feel about the last record. There's 3 or 4 gems on there that I really, really like. I'm not going to spin it as much as I do And Justice or Ride the Lightning or the Black Album. But look, there's 3 or 4 songs on there. I'm like, hell yeah, keep on putting out music. So hopefully that'll be the case with this album. But you tell me, is that just that part of me speaking that wants it to be so good because I'm such a Metallica mark? Like Bastion said on the comments of my community post about the new single, there's nothing that can stop me from loving Metallica. Unless we found out that James just did something heinous and he's like a prolific murderer or something. Outside of something crazy like that, there's nothing that can stop me from loving Metallica. So I'm just looking for anything that would redeem this thing to me and I'll love it. But unfortunately, I'm not finding that yet. Even looking at the album cover, it's so glossy and bright. And that's kind of the way I would describe these 2 singles. They're glossy and bright. But I'm not the only man in the world, and obviously I'm not the only Metallica fan, so I need to know, what do you think? Do you love this new direction? Do you not want it to be super heavy? As long as it rocks, you're good? Do you just say, okay, I just need good songs. I just want Metallica to keep on putting out good music? I understand that. Tell me what you think. Do you hate it? I don't want to hate it. I really don't, but I could, and that bothers me. I'm dying for some feedback here. Hit the comments, hit my social media. All the links are in the description. Let me know. Tell me what you think about the latest 2 Metallica singles. Do you think that these are the way the rest of the album's going to sound? Now, as always, I promised you the riff of the week. Y'all know I'm way too scared to put a Metallica song on the episode. I know that the gods of copyright and YouTube will strike me down if I do that. So if you're on YouTube, you can just click right here and it'll be a video of me doing a philosophical breakdown of Master of Puppets. Check that one out. But most importantly, read philosophy, listen to metal. I love you.